All right, folks, here, let's move the old coffee out of the way. I got all the stuff out here to explain what we got going on here. I won't be bringing a go-kart to MIS this weekend because this is what's happening. I told you we're going to have Rich weld up the bottom of the motor, which he did here. And then I put the DevCon on it and put it all back on the cart, and it still leaked water. I didn't even get to run the engine. Took it all back off. The DevCon I put on didn't stick for some reason. It had broke loose, but the real reason it was leaking water is because when he welded it, we didn't split it. He welded it back up, and then the gasket sealer probably melted or whatever from the heat, and that's why it was leaking, because everything else looked good. Now this is the old half from the first engine that froze, and this is where the gear case and water void were cracked here, and the water was getting into the oil and messing stuff up. And he tried welding it, and it, as you can see, I don't know, you probably can't see it from there, but it's still cracked. The more he welded on it, the more he welded it here, the more he welded on it, the more it cracked. These are just garbage castings, these sand castings from Italy over there. You'd think they'd do better work than that, but it's a go-kart engine, right? So what I did was, since I had it apart, all I had to do was silicone it back up, or use your Yamabond, whatever it is, and put it back together. I thought, hey, wait a minute, what do we need to do to make the reed cage from the big reed cage from the faster engine fit into the motor that we're running? Now that this gear case isn't broke, I mean, we can salvage this engine. I could have just glued it back up and took it to MIS and ran it, but it's not as fast. We know that. At Grattan in October, we hustled our butt, changed some things with handling and gearing and stuff, and even with it being cold, we weren't getting good grip on the track, and the best it did was a 124. With more grip, we need more heat, ambient heat. With more ambient heat, we're going to make less power. I don't think it was going to do any better than a 124.5. It might have gone a few tenths quicker. This engine, on the other hand, this is the one you see on the YouTube channel that ran at Daytona, ran at MIS a couple of years ago in 14, and it's a lot more RPM at the top and a lot more mile per hour. This engine is still good and strong, but it doesn't have the mile per hour this one does, and it just doesn't make sense to try to run this one over there at MIS, knowing that the guys we ran with before, Brian, how you doing, Brian? Hope you and Jeremy have a safe trip up. It just wasn't going to run with them guys, and once you get things working, you don't want to go backwards. I mean, we're all competitive, right? I mean, that's why we do it. I mean, one, to have fun, and two, to test our competitiveness. So I figured I'm going to see what we need to do to get this big reed cage to fit in here. So what we did is we took templates off the bigger reed cage motor, right here, and then off the front as well. And because the isolator for the carburetor is the same for both models, all that's really different is the opening that goes in. If you look at the reed cages from the slower engine, for lack of a better word, and the faster engine, there's a huge difference, right? So you look at this, things probably came right out of one of their 100cc engines. This is the first homologation that Vortex attempted to make of an ICC. This was the second homologation. So we slip this out of here and you really see the big difference, right? I mean, huge difference. And in reality, these engines, they're just air pumps, right? I mean, it's an air pump. The more air you can pump in, the more air you can pump out. The more you pump it in and out, the faster it's going to go, right? So what I did is I took the templates, I transferred everything, and this is the first half. It took me 2 days, and I'm doing all this work by hand. You don't see any bridge ports here, okay? There's no machines, nothing like that. I had to take a rotary file and rough, open it up, and then hand files, and hand file, and hand file, and sand it with paper, and on top of a file or on top of a stick or something flat, and work, and get it all worked in so we could get this big reed cage to fit in here. You see, so it's in now. It's good flush. It fits nice. Actually, I think it fits better than it fit in the old motor that it came out of. But so there you go. We got it all worked up now. So now that the first bit's done, we put it back together like, you know, and then transferred these lines onto this side here. And we'll go ahead and start working up this side here. It's Thursday. Today's what, the 19th, right? Today is the 19th. Yes, Thursday the 19th. So we don't have enough time to get all this work done to take the go-kart to MIS. If I stayed out here night and day and then pulled a John West, could I get it done? John, a little plug for you. Probably, but I'm not willing to work that long and that hard. I'm sorry. I'm an old man now. And, you know, I've got other interests. We got a bike over here that doesn't need any work at all except me throwing a leg over it, if you know what I mean. So let me show you exactly what the difference was. I'll come around and show you. This is a shot of the intake of the first homologation, the VL, with the small reed cage. You see the difference between the opening of the intake track and the bolt holes. And like I said, the isolators are the same from engine to engine. That's the good one, the RVS. Look how much closer it's a much bigger hole, folks. So, you know, I mean, I'm not a highly educated fella, but bigger hole, more air. The more she pumps, faster she goes. So that's the story with why I'm not going to bring a go-kart out to the track. I am coming out Saturday morning. I'm going to help my boy Larry Rumsey. He's going to run his sprint kart. He's going to need somebody to push start him and to wipe his brow and to get him a bottle of water and all that kind of stuff. And MIS for me is especially from this house that we moved to. We're right here at 696. I could be at MIS in probably less than 90 minutes. I mean, it won't take that long. It's going to be a beautiful weekend, and depending on looking at the weather, what the weather is going to look like at 6 a.m. when I would probably bail out of here, I might just ride the bike out there and hang out with y'all for the weekend, well, at least for Saturday afternoon. I've got a little message now. I'm going to move into a little different story here with Tony H. I told Tony I'd run him through the mounting system. He bought a K9B, which is, you know, pretty much the same stuff, the way these things are designed. H, you can see here, here's the motor mounts that I made for my Vortex. The chassis had a Honda on it. When I bought it, it was Scott's kart, Scott Fiesler. It had a late model RS on it, which is quite a bit different than the older model that Rich and I run, or that I used to have. Our old engine was more like a dirt bike engine, like a CR125, the RS. So the mounting was through bolts, and on the late model RS, it was quite a bit different. That engine was actually a stressed member of the bike. So there were actually threaded bolt holes that you needed little bolts instead of big long through bolts. And so the way he mounted the motor to the cart, it articulated. It rock and rolled back and forth, which is pretty much basic setup for all the European carts, the Zip carts, the Andersons, the PVPs, all that stuff. All the supercart guys are on articulating type mounts. So it was natural for him hanging out with John, obviously, to hook their stuff up that way. So when I got the go-kart from Scott, I kind of had to make my engine adapt to the chassis, unless I was going to cut it all up and start over. So Tony's question is, he's building a new, to him, laydown from a Margay chassis, and it doesn't have the mounting system on it yet, the tubular mounting system like on a sprint kart. And so with the K9B, you've got when this thing's pieced together, you've got an cast aluminum mount that bolts to the bottom of the engine, right? And it has half round clamps that are cast into this side, and then it's got the butterflies that come up from underneath. What I did, because my cart was that when I got from Scott was already set up for this articulating or sliding thing, is I took just angle iron and bolted it up to the bottom of the motor, just these pieces of angle, and then I took it over to the cart and mocked the motor up height where I wanted it, away from my elbow, all that kind of stuff. Lined up the counter shaft sprocket with the axle, and kept it the gear on the axle, in mind, where we wanted to keep it far enough away from the bearing where it wouldn't be a problem. And then what we did is we went from there. We started with these angled bits, and when I take you over to the cart, you'll see what I'm talking about. These slots here, we get little through bolts that go through here, through a welded bung on the chassis, and the whole motor slides, and it's on a turnbuckle. So let me take you over there real quick, and I'll run you through one half of these things real fast. Pay attention, H. Now, as you can see here, this is about all Tony has to work with. None of this stuff is on. Actually, it was a left-hand cart, I think. So whatever was there was on the other side, and I had chopped all that stuff up. We started to actually build that cart for him, and then things went in a different direction. But once we set the motor here with the angled metal on it, it was propped up on probably some wood or something, and we had everything clamped down, and we squared everything up with the axle. And so all we had existing at the time was the angle. And then we just built out from there. We made these side pieces and clamped them on, and tacked things together, and made sure everything wasn't moving, and kept it all square and straight. It's like anything else. I was a model maker, so to me it was just second nature. You start with what you want and you build out to it. A lot of folks, I'm sure, understand what I'm saying, but that's what we did. And Tony, you can look at this a couple different ways. I mean, you've got a mount that already bolts to your engine, which will require really no work at all, no fabricating. You can build the chassis to suit that motor mount, and to me that makes sense. The only issue is, like I told you on the telephone, was with that butterfly system, you're going to have to cut a big hole in the bottom of your floor tray here. And if you happen to put a wheel off the racetrack, those butterflies are the first thing to hit the surface of the track, and they'll get torn up. And you see the quality of this cast aluminum. I can't imagine TM's castings are any better. So I don't think I would want to be bouncing cast aluminum off the racetrack. But it does, those are the things you have to take into account. I think it's a pretty good bet you're going to put a wheel off the racetrack, if not all four wheels off the racetrack. Seeing as you've never driven a laydown, and you're going to have to get used to it, and getting used to it involves a little agricultural racing, so to speak. So that's it. That's where we're at. I'm coming out Saturday. Going to spend the afternoon. I'll tour the garage. We'll bring the camera with us, and we'll get Brian and Jeremy and everybody on the movie, and we'll bring it home and we'll load it up, and hopefully everybody has a safe trip up. It's going to be a beautiful weekend. The weather's going to be fantastic. It's nice out there now, man. I really want to get on the bike and go for a ride. But that's all I got for you. We'll see you all up there Saturday morning and Saturday afternoon. We'll wander around probably lunchtime, go visit everybody and see how everyone's doing. To my buddy Jamal, who's out on the road, the independent over-the-road trucker, out there traveling the highways, meeting up with all types of humanity. Be safe out there, brother. I love you. Be blessed. To all my other friends and racing buddies and stuff, we'll see you up there. All the rest of the folks, we hope to see you soon. Y'all take care. God bless.